Hey guys, Mikey here. Just before the podcast starts, I want to let you know it's best experience viewed on YouTube, where we have collated government information, factual records, evidence, studies, and statistics to support our theories.
Asking all the big questions. Series of theories. Asking all the big questions.
Hey up lads, I've had an idea about the podcast.
Series of theories. Asking all the big questions. Series of theories. Asking all the big questions. Series of theories.
Hello and welcome to Series of Theories podcast, the podcast where we take on the big questions. Today's big question comes from Sam. What have we got, brother?
Has the war on drugs been lost?
The age-old question, has the war on drugs been lost?
Yes. Done.
Have you got a theory,
Yeah.
my friend? Go on. Is it a lost battle? Are we fighting it still? Where are we in this battle?
Depends who
Does it
side.
feel
Yeah.
like a battle?
I think it's a battle from both sides, and I think everyone's fighting nothing. So
Have you got armour? Have you got a sword?
Yeah.
Where you start? Let's be metaphorical bastards.
What sword could I use? No.
Do you want drugs to win or the
sword
authority
of
to win?
truth.
I think drugs should win. Yeah.
I like where we're going with this.
Yeah.
I mean, the concept is that we've got drugs are illegal. There's a lot of people, more so now than ever, that are addicted to drugs. And the government's attitude is the more we harden on drugs, the tighter the restrictions become, the more the legalisation becomes, we're going to overcome this.
Yeah.
Which is proven not to work
for years.
through history. And every time we've tried it and harshened on it and hardened it, it's become a fighting battle. The places in the world that have legalised and had a compassionate, authentic view of it, it seems to have worked. It seems to be. They're managing to fund things like put tax on drugs.
Yeah.
They're putting it into their education system.
Yeah, creates
into their
money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it completely
You
creates.
can't ban things like you can't ban anything really because people will find a way to get it, regardless of what it is. I mean, they tried it with alcohol, didn't they? Back in the day, they tried to do prohibition with alcohol, and it didn't work because people just brewed their own, and it makes it less safe, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So you create a black market with no regulation. So just people want to do something.
I'm
do
guessing
something.
you've watched a few documentaries on these sort of conversations. If you're sat across now from a raging conservative, and I've seen those side of arguments been had, what would their devil's advocate reasoning be for why we need to harshen it and harden it?
Well, there are a few countries where hardening it has not eradicated drugs from it, but it has definitely controlled it to a point where people don't really want to do them anymore. And that's Japan and South Korea.
Okay.
Japan,
There's culture there though as well.
it is partially in the culture as well, but Japan, I
Part of
think...
their religion? Or?
Not religion.
No,
Really.
they're not,
They're not
very
religious.
They're not really that religious.
Okay.
But I know with Japan, it's a 10-year prison sentence for possession of pretty much anything, even weed.
Yeah, I mean,
And
wow.
to a point where even the Yakuza think it's too much of a risk to traffic drugs,
Yeah.
so they just don't bother.
South Korea go very hard on it as well.
I
Don't they?
didn't
So a lot.
realise this was the case.
Yeah.
In
South
such
Korea have got life.
serious
And
life.
Indonesia have got death, haven't they?
Oh, of course, there was that
Indonesia, you've got
tourist lady
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
being
Yeah, that
Death
woman.
by-
fought for, wasn't she?
death by firing squad.
But
in
the South
Indonesia.
Korea one, they were saying, when Canada legalised weed, they were saying if anyone from South Korea got proven to have smoked weed in or taken any weed or whatever in Canada, they would get arrested in South Korea. So
Wow.
they still have to abide by the laws of their own country when they're abroad as well.
But they're
That's
very
how it works.
authoritarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what they say.
Dictatorship.
So
I don't
the thing is
really
that South
stand
Korea,
for.
it's not even a dictatorship. It's just
They're
the way
quite
their
communist
society
though, aren't
is very. I think it's just very. Is it socialist?
They're very communist,
Yeah.
like communist sympathising, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. But like, it's
Because they have censored internet and everything, don't they? They can't
yeah.
get hold of anything.
What do you think it is on drugs that they have such a hatred for? Do you think a side of it could be because it is mind-opening and
I
it
think
makes
that's a big
people
part of it.
ask questions?
Yeah.
I personally think
It's hard to not with weed or something.
true.
But I'm not advocating this, by the way, on the podcast. I've got many great times in my life with substances, but I'm somebody, I've personally found that it doesn't work for me. I don't do well with substance in my life. I become half the person I can be with them, and I've got medical problems from them now. They exacerbate that, send me on a wild goose chase, lads. Dangerous in me, but I don't think they're eradicate and just dangerous for anybody. We just need honest discussions, good education, conversations where people go, you know what, it might be an addition in my life. I might be able to do this responsibly, reasonably, and have a life on it.
We shouldn't blanket approach. I don't think we should treat it's not criminal. I don't think it should, because you kind of lay it on different types of drug, obviously, won't you? So you've got your hard drugs, your soft drugs. I mean, that's how kind of the Netherlands look at it, a bit hard drug, soft drug approach. But with that regard, you can kind of look at it and go, well, someone who's taking soft drugs and doing it regularly, how much harm does that actually cause, and how much of an issue is it? And if it becomes an issue, should you be punishing that person and prosecuting them and putting them in prison, or giving a criminal record, or should you be trying to help them? And then you look at the hard drugs, and in the first place, why do people take hard drugs in general anyway? Is probably because they're not too happy, or they need something to take the edge off of what's going on in their own life. So then that is a health issue straight away. It's already a health issue. So either way, I don't think you can start criminalising people for doing something, putting something in their body, which is their own body, in their own. They can do what they want. Like, it should do what you want, and if you go too far, look after it. But if you can create a market where things are regulated and things are even taxed, even to a point where it's taxed and it creates money for the country or for the economy, and then surely that's better, because that can then be used for the health effects, and it's rather than being pumped into costing us loads of money for incarcerating and put people in prison, it can be used to help people get help and sort themselves out.
That's why Canada
They're creating
and a lot
a
of
war,
America
aren't they?
smashed it doing that.
Yeah.
Because they now fund a lot of the addiction centres through money that they're making on weed tax.
Yeah, that's
like
it.
Colorado they do.
Colorado have smashed it.
Yeah.
Really.
I've been looking at a lot of statistics in preparation for this podcast. As you know, we like to do, really prepare. But I looked at glance of Colorado, and when was it legalised, like marijuana? It was 2016.
I think it was 16.
16,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's kind of laughable. Do you know when you look at the statistics and it just spikes in what it's done for everything, and the crime rate goes this way, and everything else goes up in a good sense? You just go, guys, have we all looked at this? Do you want to see what's going on here? This looks pretty promising. But I mean, what you touched on there as well, I think this quote I've always really loved, and it's drugs and alcohol are not the problem, they're the solution to the problem. And it is like looking at environments, looking at societies and communities and worlds that are worth living for without needing drugs to mask something or put a plaster on something. Really poor mental health, really poor, like, depression, anxiety. I've definitely done substance before. What else do you do? This is what's around. I've got nothing else to live for. I'm working a 9 to 5 that I absolutely deplore. We've got nothing else to do for the weekend, so we'd go out and then we'd have a few things that are legal, methylcarbonyl, nice bottle of that with a nice juicy label on it, and then that'd get a bit boring after a while, so we'd look for something new and something new, and you get different kicks out of it. But if I'd have at school had the truthful information come in, the real talk sent to me, because when it was just fear-based, marijuana will kill you, this will make you do that, this will do that, and then you have one day and feel amazing for a time. You're giggling with your friends, you're exploring, you know, like my parents have been to Amsterdam and had their little cake and thinking they're going to die, but then they're having the best night of their life. It's when you experience that moment, you then think you've been lied to all your life. You just go, oh my God, I've been lied to. What do I do now? And then we have no idea
Opens your mind.
Quality control, quantity control, any control on it. You're just jumping in the ocean, really.
A lot of governments are unwilling to start talking about it as well, because you think about, I mean, in particular, there's going to be certain parties where their core set of voters are going to be very anti-drugs
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the propaganda that's been trotted out over the
Yeah,
years anyway.
yeah.
So it's very difficult for a government to go, actually, we were actually bending it a
Yeah.
little bit. It's not really that bad. Like, don't worry about it too much. To kind of go, we're going to actually look at a health-based policy for drugs, and we're not going to be looking at prohibition, and not going to be looking at like prosecuting people.
It's like conspiracy theorists, isn't it?
But they're
in
not
a
going to
way?
get voted for if they do that.
Do you know when you've gone down so vehemently on a route of flat Earth, let's just say, because I don't believe the Earth is flat personally,
Yes, you do.
because of
Yeah, you do, really.
all the information that's been shown and given through science, and the consensus is now, come on, we live on a globe. Like, but it's like that when somebody's gone so far down that path, and even if all the information's been given to them, people of both sides go, come on, here, look at this. They've built a community over that now. They've built a mindset of it. They've got friends, they've got family.
There's conventions.
They've got a
aren't there?
tribe.
The Flat Earth Convention.
Yeah. So wouldn't it be lovely to feel part of a community that are all in on something? And if somebody pokes holes in it, puts flaws in it, you've lost your sense of self. You've lost your ego. You've lost everything. Same for conservative ways. If they just start U-turning, they will feel, oh, what else are people going to think we've got wrong?
We've
What
already
else have
got
we
a
lied
culture
to?
of fake news, all this and that.
Yeah.
So, well, they've lied to us about that. I mean, I can see why they're reluctant to do it. A lot of governments, but it's in one side they'll probably see it as being stupid to go, oh, it's stupid, it's suicide for us to do this. But then on the other side, it's quite brave to kind of put your neck on the line and be that change. Like I said, a lot of countries are doing it. Like Portugal did it years ago, didn't they, with decriminalisation. You've got Canada doing it with weed. You've got a lot of American states doing it.
A lot of European countries, it's
Europe,
pretty
yeah.
much decriminalised now, like Spain, Italy.
Switzerland, safe treatment.
I just
route
want to
for
see
heroin,
the police going to really serious issues and serious crimes, and something else being dealt with for people with petty crime, like drugs and deals and so on. It doesn't protect me in any which way. And there's been shown in studies that, criminal damage, criminal effect, petty crime to pay for the habits is so low in comparison to what alcohol does for people, and the strain on the NHS, the strain on so many other factors.
Exactly.
You think, well, what rules they're implementing supplied by the data, because it doesn't correlate anymore. It doesn't make
it's
sense.
not evidence-based, is it?
No,
That's what they've
just
saying.
gone,
We need an evidence-based drugs approach.
this is what we've decided through time, and no matter what comes forward now, we've seen in PTSD what mushrooms have done,
LSD
MDMA as well. I think LSD's been used. There's studies now all over the world being deployed to truthfully look into mental health, look how we can start utilising particularly psychedelics.
We can't do the research at the moment.
But you're not allowed to do
because
the
you're not allowed
the
to get the
research,
drugs because they're on a scheduled list of all these drugs, and you're like, well, you can't have this one and do tests on this one. I mean, even to the extent where they've had it with weed, like you can't really do research in this country, even though they'll flog it. They love flogging it everywhere else. Like put Sativex and all that. The biggest exporter in the world, aren't we, of medical marijuana in this country? But like you can't research in this country without certain licenses, and even to like CBD and hemp and things like that. There's still restrictions on all that, and it's mad. Like it is mad that the stuff that they could look into with all this is all stuff that you could really learn a lot from looking into. You could really learn a lot from researching, and they seem to not want to do that for some reason. And there's probably multiple reasons because of it, but it's just tricky to pin down.
And then getting into the level where we're just treating it as a medical issue, as a health issue, rather than a criminal activity. That seems to be the importance to me.
Yeah.
If people are addicted to drugs, I think there's people recreationally that take drugs, can do drugs and live healthily, but we talk about a lot, don't we, Professor David Nutt, who was studying all forms of substance, but he did a really fascinating test on a documentary I watched where there was two, and one was about environment. So they had a rat utopia. This study always gets brought out in this debate, but where they had have you heard this test at all, Josh?
No, I haven't.
It's really interesting. They had 2 cages, and one had 2 water chutes in, and one was laced with cocaine and the other was laced with just water. And because this cage had nothing in it, it was just a blank cage and just a rat on its own. Every rat that they put in that environment, 90 something ridiculous percent, all got addicted to the cocaine laced water.
Yeah.
Now they built a rat utopia where you could have as much sex as you wanted. It was basically like a party, but they had the food, they had all their needs met. And I think it was only 13% or lower that actually went to the water with cocaine in. All the other rats just left their cocaine water and went for the water, which was fascinating.
Because they were happy with
they were
already.
happy with their environment. Which then they took the rats that decided to go to that cocaine. There was probably something different in those rats. So they looked at how the serotonin, dopamine was released, and they did a different test. And the ones that had a substance with cocaine, they released serotonin so sharply, so fastly, and dopamine that it was this blood rush. And then they put them in this cage, which wasn't so nice, but there was these rats where they'd go, press a button, wait 5 seconds patiently, and get a bit of cocaine. Keep doing that, but there was, again, the ones that had the addictive qualities all did the cocaine till death. They just kept going.
Just kept going.
Yeah, and they would press the button and wouldn't wait. They'd be scratching at it, going, just getting it, go down, go, grab it again. And they just kept going back and back until they died. They looked at the brain chemistry and on an MRI scan of what was released in addicts, so people that were in therapy as addicts, and it was identical to how it was being released in these rats. So there was something very telling and very informative on addicts and how addicts' brains act. So they looked at the environment first and then went into the ones that do get hooked. There's something different in their brain chemicals. So we need to look at that as a society, surely, where we go, this is a health issue now. People that can't cope without need to be treated with compassion and love, not, right, we make it a really hard, dark, black market for them to get it, and then when we find they are taking it, we'll clamp them and
then they go and shoplift, and then we'll put them in prison for a few weeks, then they get a criminal record, then they can't get a job, then they come out and then they take more drugs, then they go back in prison. It's just a cycle. Like,
it's a vicious cycle. I personally do believe in abstinence-based recovery for addicts, people that can't possibly survive without in any regard. I think the most sensible and beautiful thing we could do as a community is help them people to the best of their accord. And I put myself genuinely in that category of somebody that should try their absolute best on a daily to stay away from substances in general, because I don't do well on them.
It's a good point, isn't it, really? Because this is the thing, like, everyone's different and everyone reacts to things in a different way. So I think to have one blanket approach for everything, it's not the right way to do it.
Completely agree.
It's really not the right way to do it, and it has to be dealt with in the moment. And I think if you are making it a black market and making it something that is taboo and something that you shouldn't be doing, people aren't going to be as ready to get the help anyway, because they don't want to talk about it. And you'll have a lot of people who are successful, people who are working good jobs, and they'll be addicted to cocaine or something like that. They won't show it, they'll be highly functioning, but they'll be less likely to go and get help because if they go and get help and it gets out, there's a big taboo about it, there's a big issue about it. So that will make it worse. So if you can make it a lot more accepted to get the help, I mean, like with mental health anyway, mental health over the last few years has become a lot more of a topic people can talk about and something that people can be open about and go and get help with. If drug usage alongside that was as easy to talk about, and people probably would get help. But it's just not still.
And I think even if we looked at the legal system and we looked at police and had a conversation with police officers, on the documentaries I've seen, the people I know in the system, they want the same. They don't really want to be going and tackling these crimes.
No,
they see it's wasting their time.
Yeah, of course.
They're not, that they're putting a plaster on a gaping hole that just can't be looked after in this way anymore, treated in this way. It's just, imagine cleaning a window when it's just constantly raining and you just keep wiping this water off, and then there's more. That's all that's ever going to happen. Until we just have to change our approach. It's not working. If we're looking looking at have we lost the war on drugs, the answer to me is yes, we've lost the war.
Lost at the start.
Because there's no end point. A war, as we've seen in Game of Thrones and everything, Vikings.
Two sides.
There's two sides, but there's also a definitive moment where it goes, right, that's it now. He's the king.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
This side have given up. Oh, drugs have
Sorted.
given up.
Yeah, it's never going to happen. There's too much want in society with substance, with just sampling out, trying out, experiencing new realities and stuff that people are always going to wish for, want for, and we can't fight it. I think we need a loving side of our nature to come through and implement rules in that way so it can be done more safely, put taxes on it and open the environments. If there was more education in schools towards it, there'd be, I think, a lot less people bothering in honesty.
Well, we had Dare. That was it, really. Dare. And it was
Talk to Frank.
Talk to Frank was a load of bullshit. She used to go on that and just laugh at the descriptions. It'd be like, that's not what happens. What the fuck are you talking about,
There is
Frank?
South Park episodes on this, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
Do you know when they come in the electrical storm and they've got his future self?
Future self. I watched that one the other week.
Because they won't be open and honest about drugs with them. So they smear their walls with crap. But it really is true. And they're saying they South Park do it on sex. Because they're not being told truthful information. They all become like hypochondriacs and just terrified of sex and drugs. No. And then the moment they touch a marijuana butt and it doesn't kill them, they go, oh no, like, why they're lying to me? What's the truth?
We've
and
got
I think
fear-based policies at the moment.
Stan's dad, Randy, gives a lovely speech at the end. He's like, no, your first marijuana cigarette probably won't kill you and you won't probably ever die from it. I just think you could be pursuing your time with better wholesome activities and stuff. Talking to him in a loving way, and it's like, okay, he probably won't go on to be a drug addict now. You didn't have to lie all the
Till
way.
he started Tegrity Farm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Such a hypocrite. Randy is the most. We should do who's the most hypocritical father of all time. He tops.
Yeah, he wins.
I mean, one thing we haven't discussed much about, and I think it's one of the most important issues with the war on drugs, is the whole criminality-based thing. That wasn't the best wording at all, but it's like the whole criminality surrounding it. Because whenever I see like news articles about grows being bust, they always say as about the statement from the commissioner of the police says the whole drugs is a wider problem. You might think that a bit smoking the odd spliff might not be a problem, but it's not even the gateway. It's the fact you're funding crime and you're funding criminals and you're funding other things.
Can you legalise it then?
The only reason why the criminals have got any power over the market is because it's illegal. If the government then made it legal, they would have control over the market, and the government love control, so why wouldn't they do that?
They love money.
I mean, I've heard this, and I don't know how true it is, but wasn't it really exacerbated in America with Mexico, where they sent loads of crack into Mexico, got people addicted, turned them into addicts, and then made it illegal, then privatised prisons. So it was all basically the reason of making drugs illegal was to get people hooked on things that they could then profit more from. So have you heard that as
I've heard a bit,
as
and
an
then
idea?
America did a lot of it with the poorer communities in America itself.
Was it?
Cocaine?
Okay.
Cocaine as the drug itself was the white
they were
person drug, wasn't
getting
it?
it
was the rich
from
person
Mexico
drug.
or something was happening
something
there
like
where
that.
they
It
were
was
taking it from Mexico, getting people addicted to it in their own poorer communities, and then arresting them and privatising prisons.
That's
I think
what it was.
The
Because
CIA had a lot of involvement.
there was a lot of racism involved in it as well, because they were doing it predominantly black areas, getting black people generally hooked on the crack, and then that was being demonised in the press. So normal cocaine wasn't being demonised as much. All the bankers were taking that, all the rich Wall Street guys were taking that, but crack, this is the enemy. This is always the same fucking substance. It's the same thing. It's just that this is the one that the black people were taking, so they made it look worse, and it's created that whole thing, and it's carried on going. Like people still see crack as worse than cocaine generally. You're crackhead. You're not. It just doesn't seem to stack up, but they're the same drug. It's the same thing, just processed a different way.
Bloody lovely. No, I'm joking. But I mean, and same with in the UK. So in the 60s as well, the 60s movement, the hippie movement, and psychedelics being used, the John Lennon days, you know. But again, I've heard hearsay where CIA were involved,
Yeah.
seeing minds opening, conversations being had, people wanting to escape the rat trap and the 9-to-5 living, and everything that'd been sold was a lie, and the drugs had opened up the gateway of conversating about that,
Yeah.
and they needed to shut it down straight away. I've heard, I can't remember, one of the main guys, there was a podcast recently, it's Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy,
And
the killer.
Ted Bundy was a killer. It was one of the other killers.
Right.
But they basically, the CIA, this is something I heard, and now we are in the term of conspiracy podcast. I'm so into
What's
this.
this then?
What they've been up to now. But the way of
CIA.
demonising them, in the hippie community, one of the families, not Ted Bundy, but the other serial killer, was used as a bit of a look what acid does, and
Was it Charles Manson?
Charles Manson, that's
yes.
the one.
There's a lot of drugs
Yeah.
surrounding
And
this cult thing.
This guy bought a book out about it because he was working in the CIA at the time.
Yeah.
And they thought, why are we working on this guy so much? He's clearly just a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
But then he went and actually saw the factories or the laboratories where they were working on LSD and seeing what it did, and he was one of the figures that they would use to see how far they could push someone.
Yeah.
Then they could demonize this movement of hippies because they give him this little mansion and his tribe, and he'd kill people. So that's where they're like, right, we've got this now, we can
What? So the whole Manson,
vilify it.
So the whole Manson family cult was a
just
a
check
CIA
it.
conspiracy.
Just check it out.
Mate, that,
Check it out.
that Adam Curtis thing that I was talking about,
Does
that
it
goes
discuss
into.
it?
I mean, they talk about Project MK Ultra on that one, which is when I think it was a CIA giving people acid, giving people LSD to try and. It was generally, I think they were trying to do it to remove trauma.
It was
So
just-
like
Yes,
people who had
yeah.
trauma in childhood, can they use LSD, can they use acid to get rid of those memories?
They did it with
And they were
soldiers.
essentially
Yes.
erasing
This
people
is
and
what he
shock
was talking
therapy and
about.
all that kind of thing, and they were erasing people's minds. And there was an interview with a girl or a woman they did it to, and she was like, "Yeah, I can't remember anything before that." And yeah, it's all stuff that they were still
these
doing
labs,
themselves as well.
These labs had been up and running for 50, 60 years. This guy in the CIA came out, bought this book out, and the day of it release, all these labs just shut down on that day. There was too much incriminating information, and he's on a Rogan podcast, so I'll send it you over.
Yeah.
But it crossed from conspiracy to that can come out of the box now, and that's a truth.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. I'm not a conspiracy theorist in the slightest, but I do find it very interesting when you've got a box of conspiracies, and then every time one comes back out of it, it goes, well, what's that then? What do we call that?
Yeah.
It's more than a theory now.
And you can't tell what's true and what's not there. They
Yeah,
created this
it
smoke screen
makes
where
it
it's
harder.
like, which ones are true? Like, they're on that thing I'm talking about, they are common like Illuminati, and is that real? That one apparently was made as a joke to kind of see what people would believe, but then the MK Ultra thing was happening at the same time, but that was real, and it just
you
and they
kind of
create
think,
this kind
do
of
they
minefield
add
of
to it to create this smoke screen.
and then
So
you
the
can't
more we
decide what's
put
true.
in there, you get to decipher, and you get called crazy.
and that's why there is this kind of
When-
subculture of people that just
When has it
Go
been
mad on things.
asking questions ever been crazy?
you can ask a question about everything, but that's probably why they did it. If you start asking questions and people start thinking you're crazy, then it's like, well, we're going to do what we want, because then people just get called crazy for asking any questions.
And this is series of theories, just theories. Yeah.
Series of conspiracy theories.
We should cough every time. I love a bunch of weirdos coming together. How do you feel on? Would you like to conclude in some way towards this, Josh? Like, have you got any ideas?
Do you want to be the voice of reason?
Do you want to be? Yeah. Do you want to shut us idiots up, because we're just going to go down like all the dangerous sides of conspiracy now? We've lost everyone anyway. Up now. Yeah, I'm really weird.
Cancel.
To be honest, I mean, I definitely agree that the war on drugs as such has been lost by the authorities. If you're on the side of the drugs, then you're probably going to win. But yeah, like we said, like in terms of if you did decriminalise it, you've obviously got the health benefits of that, not treating them like criminals. You've also got the criminals not having power over the black market, and then potentially, if you then take that one step further and actually sell it legally, you can then tax it and then make money that way.
Yeah.
It just feels crazy that like something that grows out the ground, which then does show ingenuity and entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
two very good words there,
Very well done.
in people, and the fact that we can look at that and only see criminals in a very short-minded, closed-off vision. These are terrible people. When it goes, look at what sort of skill set that's showing.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put it in different areas.
Ultimately,
but
awesome. Drug dealers generally only, I can't speak for all of them, but generally only sell drugs to people that want them.
Yeah.
They're not out there trying to get people hooked on. Like, I know that that's a lot of propaganda. What you get told when you're a teenager by your parents and stuff, and by Frank. I remember when we first went to
Frank.
Amsterdam. Your dad said, "Oh, I've heard that people go around injecting people with needles to get them hooked on heroin."
Such a dad thing to say.
They go into coffee shops and inject them with needles, yeah.
And it's like, well, one, right,
don't.
that is a massive waste of heroin.
Yeah, why would they do that?
And why would they want to give it you for free when they can sell it to someone who's already addicted to it? Like, there's just so many flaws in that. But that's the kind of propaganda that
That's
people
what
get
happens.
peddled.
People get
We
told
need
these
more
things.
in the market.
Yeah, we need more. We need more users. No, it doesn't matter they don't live in this country and they're going to fuck off after this weekend.
They're out here for one weekend.
We'll make all the money for the dealers in their country.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. If I told my mates out over there, we do it for you, you do it for us.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But going back to what we were saying about, you were talking about weed before, weren't you? In terms of,
I was
like,
talking about so many
I'm
things,
sure
mate.
something that comes out of the ground. Anyway, you said that phrase, but the one that makes me interest me recently is the police or the ex-police crime commissioner for Wales. He's advocating now giving prisoners weed to just in prison as like a trial, because obviously a lot of them are coming off harder drugs, a lot of them are taking spice, a lot of them are in a bad place, and there's evidence obviously that it can help people in these
and
situations.
again, the prisoners are running the black markets of selling it because they fly in drones over with all the drug
the amount
packs
of political parties that come out and gone, that's a terrible idea, that should never happen,
Yeah.
that's a terrible idea, without any conversation about it at all, just straight up la 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 la, and not listening. It's one of them. Like, how do you get it to change?
We've definitely lost
it's
it.
gone.
They've lost it. It's a complete obsolete thing of trying to fight it anymore. So new approaches, new tactics, new battles need to be looked at, and I think where we can learn from is Portugal, is places in America.
Uruguay as well. I was about to
Uruguay.
mention that because that was a
Mujica.
that was an interview that I watched, and he was saying, I didn't want the criminals to have the black market anymore, so I just make it legal.
Well, from what you're saying as well, though, earlier in the podcast, there probably are conservative, probably not watching this, but people that would be shouting now, well, just stop where you said what they were doing in Japan or doing in South Korea.
Yeah.
Just do that. What we need is 10-year sentences when they've got a 10 bag on them. We need this, we need
differences
that.
in people. That's
Is that the world you want to live in?
Yeah.
Do you want to live in that world?
And
Certainly
also,
not.
it's the thing with like Japan and Korea and things. There's generation after generation after generation after generation after generation that's been put in society. So it's not like it's something you can just change. Like to British, think about British people. We've not even listened to lockdowns though. Like it's the people in this country will not play that game. They'll just do what they want because that's the kind of arrogance that people in Britain have.
Interesting one with Japan there, though. It has the highest suicide rate in the world
exactly.
by a country mile. I don't know if it's still by a big margin, but it has been in the past.
A good documentary on Netflix called Happy.
Yeah.
And it just goes and measures the happiness around the world and each people's surroundings. Again, they look at the science behind it, every factor you can imagine on happiness. But Japan was huge. They've got the forest for it, haven't they? Where people
Suicide
can go
forest,
suicide forest.
mad.
Yeah, I mean, let's probably not base what we want to do on a place like that.
Yeah, their society's not perfect.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's the thing. There's
not
no
quite
perfect
working.
society. I don't think anywhere's got a perfect society.
Yeah.
It's
Surely that just proves
finding
the
balance.
point.
We want to be doing for better, though, don't we? That's what we're aiming for. And having less criminals, having more compassion, and seeing things just in a new way is what I believe for drugs. And I think a lot of officers believe that, and people in the legal system voice this quite
Especially the
openly.
newer ones coming through now, the ones that have been to university and that kind of thing. I mean, I know a couple of police officers, and generally they're not really draconian about these things.
Do you think
different attitudes.
it is going to change?
I do. I think the generational shift is a thing, because it seems to be an age thing quite often. I mean, I put into like my parents, they were very, very, very anti-drugs and all kind of the usual stuff that was tried out, and I've educated them a bit and told them bits, and they changed a little bit, and even their friends, I think, are also not too bothered. And it kind of gets to the point where the more people know the truth, rather than the misinformation that's been spread for years and years and years and pushed into the psyches of everyone, the more people know the truth, the more they can make their own mind up. And
What do you
at the
think?
moment, they're having their minds made up for them.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
problem.
What do you think will happen when people our age are then starting to take important seats in politics and in Parliament? I mean, I know we've got some MPs that are pretty young, but most of them are about 40 or 50.
Yeah,
So
it's the
when
next
our
wave.
generation gets to that age, will attitudes shift completely?
I hope it's as long as it's the nuanced mindsets, the balanced ones that are
Yeah.
coming through with life experience and
That's it.
true hearts, because you don't want extremism in any world, do you?
No.
Just complete legalization of everything, no structure at all, ever.
No platform for it. Everything.
Yeah,
It's just
everyone, just the
what
right
you want.
words being said. Yeah,
free for all.
I don't know if I'm into what's that film, Mad Max.
Oh yeah. Like,
Yeah,
they just have
I'm
no
not
laws.
seeking that out yet, but
Yeah.
I definitely want less restrictions on this path of life, because I all I've seen throughout my lifetime is just a battle, like we've said, a constant fight, and it's coppers versus robbers, isn't it? So on, and it just seems like a silly get, like you see now with the drones and so on.
Yeah.
I think they somewhat enjoy it. It's just finding new ways of beating the battle, beating the system. And I think if you give people, you know what, do what you want to a degree in drugs, it's not like the whole world, everybody's just going to go, right, that's it, drug party time,
If they
party
legalise
time.
heroin tomorrow, are you going to go out and take
No,
heroin?
no.
I'm going to go out and take heroin. I don't want it.
Because I've been given true information, I've done my own research, I know what it does for you, the body, for you, for your psyche. I don't want to do it.
No.
But because I've been given the choice,
Yeah.
I mean, the choice is there. I probably would know somewhere to locate it at some point.
Yeah.
I've actively chose not to go down that path. And I think we've got to trust people.
Yeah, I agree. I think make your own mind up.
We've bumbled through this, haven't we, lads?
Yeah.
I think we've sorted it out. Do you think we've sorted it out?
I do.
You happy?
Yeah, we've not sorted the war on drugs out.
Oh,
but
shit.
We've answered.
I
our
really
question.
thought today was that I woke up with a spring in my step thinking, do you know what? War on drugs, it's been a long one, hasn't it?
Over today.
Today was the day.
Send this podcast to Boris.
Yeah.
Send in the video.
Oi,
I'm sure
buzzer.
I'm sure he'll change his
Have
mind.
one of these and see what you
VD.
think. Yeah, send it in with a spliff attached. Bosh.
Boss,
You'll
have
be
one of
right.
these.
I reckon he's done his fair share of sniff.
But look at him. Look at him. Of course he has.
I reckon he has.
And definitely
all the
Donald
top Tories.
Trump. I mean, to be on that amount of energy all the time, you've seen him lose his
have that
mind on
much money.
stage.
Well, did you hear about the Canadian version of Boris Johnson? He was like mayor of Toronto for
Yeah.
years, and then he
What was his
took.
name?
I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a big mural of him when we went to Toronto, and our tour guide even told us that what he did, he campaigned for much stricter laws on cocaine and much stricter laws on, well, not weed because they made it legal, but all the drug laws. He was campaigning for getting it a lot more strict. He's been a proper conservative, and then he got filmed doing coke. I think
there
with a load of strippers as well.
Wow.
I think it was.
Does it
but
rob something?
How do you get to that point?
I don't know, but like he was. We ended up at a very strange event with a load of Tory politicians.
I remember that one.
And they go hard. Like we didn't see any drugs on the tables or anything, but they can fucking drink.
They can rinse
Yeah.
expenses.
They can put it away. So it really wouldn't surprise me if a lot of them.
Of course.
Because like you said earlier, like the crack's the trashy one and coke's the classy one.
Yeah.
So they'll be all in with all the Wall Street and all the
It's
London
happened.
stuff.
Just
Right,
want
it's
an
still
up,
doing.
don't they?
Yeah.
People are out that in their own environment, feeling good. Time for an up. And you know, a lot of politicians look at Hitler, so on, but they're on prescribed drugs, they're on prescription, and just ups that keep them going. Because you know, you've just been given a speech to 100,000 people here, and then you've got to keep on going and give it here. it's not able to keep charging up. So you need something. You need a substance to keep you going.
Full on, isn't it?
And most, it's one chemical compound changed or something slightly altered, and because it's been prescribed to you, you can keep going on it and keep with it. So, yeah, a lot of politicians are on drugs, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not naming names.
Yeah.
Put it in your comments.
You just look like it. Nice. Okay. So thank you for being a part of this. Let us know what you think. Have we lost the war on drugs? Do you like drugs? Thank you for being a part of Series of Theories podcast. If you've got any questions you want us to answer, we'll do it like we've just done now. Bumble about and do our best. See you soon, guys. Big love.
Bye-bye.